Hi guys, in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the 3 biggest mistakes, the most common mistakes people tend to make when managing change, when implementing business change. Just before I go into them, and I am going to talk you through what they are and how to overcome them, which is obviously the important bit. Please have a look at changeproud.com if you are looking for help and support, resources learning with change management, super accessible and really good value for money in terms of giving you the support you need with your change program. So what are the 3 areas? Number 1 is really to do with engaging your business stakeholders and the business in the largest sense in your change. I'm going to talk about that. Number 2 is really understanding the impact of your change or changes on the business and being ready to respond accordingly. And number 3 is timing and sequencing. So number 1, really understanding, really engaging the business and your business stakeholders, your key business stakeholders in the changes that you're looking to implement. So there's 2 really key reasons why this is important. One is you've got to make sure that description of where you're trying to go as a business, what the future looks like, whatever this change is bringing about in terms of new ways of working, new behaviors, etc. You've got to make sure that the senior leaders of the business are actually bought into that and aligned. So many times I've been on programs where everybody's paying lip service. Everybody's, saying they understand and kind of giving their own sense of what the rationale actually is. When actually they just haven't really understood it. They've got their own agenda, they've got their own interpretation. We all have, that's not because, somebody's doing something wrong. That's because we all have as individuals, particularly in business, politics amongst leaders, etc. So you've really got to get around those key stakeholders, make sure you've properly articulated the rationale and that you've heard their reflection of that, their understanding of what that means. And the second reason is once you've understood and made sure that they understand, you've really got to make sure that they are the ones who are driving, embedding the changes across the business, in their business area as is relevant. They're going to be the ones ultimately who, employees, team members listen to and look up to. You guys, whoever I might be talking to here, the project team, the project managers, the HR team, the tech team driving it, etc. They're going to be looking at their local leaders, their bosses, their managers, the people they're with every day. It's got to come from them. So really for this first one, it's about articulating a clear vision and sense of direction, really socializing that fully across your business leaders and making sure that they've understood it and you've heard them give their interpretation of it, and then making sure that they're communicating that back out and really embedding it across the business, wherever it's needed, because they're the voice that people are going to listen to. So the second part is really understanding your change impacts. And this kind of sounds like an obvious one, right? Because you're thinking, okay, we're going to implement these changes. So the first thing we're going to do is understand really what we're changing and then how we need to respond to that. Do we need to train people, etc. But you'll be amazed how many times, a collection of change in terms of we're doing this new way of working, we've got this new technology, we've got this new way of, these new systems, whatever it might be. How little thinking has gone in to really understanding all the impacts around that. And when I say the impacts, the key areas you want to think about are what's going to be the impact, what's going to change as a result of this in terms of process, technology, data, people, your org design, your customer strategy, anything else to do with regulatory requirements. You really need to look at all those areas. A simpler way of looking at it is people, tech and process. But the other things I listed really come within those. So what are the new skills and capabilities we need people to have? Are we going to have to do any reorganization with how people work together? Are we going to have a different brand message around this? What are our customers going to think and feel? Where do we have steps in other processes that might link to this new system or way of working that we haven't really thought through? Where do we have geographical nuances that we might need to build in, reach across geographies, etc. So you really need to go through and just ask a set of questions against those areas that I listed. What will the impact be? Give it a rating, maybe high, medium and low in terms of the significance of the change itself. So how big a change will it be from what we're doing now to what we will be doing? And the scale. How many people, geographies, populations, business functions will be impacted? Because you could have something that's not really a very big change from what we do now. There's a change in the system. It's going to be fairly intuitive. Everyone should be able to get on board, but it's going to affect the whole business. So, the scale of that means that we've got to put a bit of management behind it to make sure everybody knows. Or we're changing something really significantly here. It's going to really impact the way people do things. We're removing this whole layer in the process or this whole piece of technology. It's only for a fairly succinct, small population, but it's going to be a big change. So we've got to put, all our effort into communicating, training, supporting them, etc. So you want to kind of rank in terms of high, medium, and low, and then think about what your response is basically. So what is it we need to do to manage people through this change in terms of whether it's affecting process, technology, data, people, their roles, our customer, and what are all the linkages between them? And you've just got to list it out, map it all out. And then at the end, you'll come to the realization of what the key areas of response need to be, where the focus needs to be, where the highest risk areas are, where the change is going to be felt really significantly. And then the third key area is timing and sequencing. So with most change programs I've worked on, there's loads of kind of momentum and excitement up front, and usually more communication than we should probably be giving. And employees tend to get overloaded with lots of communication. And we have to just remember several things. People aren't good at taking in lots of information at once. People also aren't good if information is only given in one way. So like lots of long emails, because many of us just can't digest information in that way. We like visuals, we like pictures, videos, FAQs, we've got to think about all the different ways. And number 3, you've got to think about the journey people go on when you're thinking about timing and the amount of information you give them. It takes us, a minute first to build just awareness. What is it? Why are we doing this? Then move on to really helping the understanding, giving more detail, bringing it to life, and then move on to really helping to build the commitment by sharing success stories, really bringing it to life for people, etc. So the timing of how you communicate, it's just not about putting all that crazy effort up front and then kind of having a lull in the middle. That's what usually happens. And then once the changes come in, there's another flurry of communication to make sure everyone's doing it, or because suddenly we realize people aren't adopting it. So it's about steady, slow, committed, consistent, not too much up front, really thinking about what you're telling people when. That's just on the kind of communication aspect of your timing in terms of thinking about change planning and sequencing. The overall sequencing plan, you really want to, obviously work from the end backwards. Think about where the key milestones are going to be. Think about what else is happening in the business, at different times so that you can coordinate around that. Build in, that time for things that don't land properly, things get delayed, stuff doesn't happen. Call out early what the risks might be if things are overrunning and delayed. And just really plan your sequencing in that way and plan the employee communication journey along with that. Because you have to remember that when you're in the program, living, breathing it every day, that is so not the case with managers, leaders, people who are, all over the place, busy doing their own things. And just that 1 or 2 communication you send out every now and then isn't gonna cut it. So with timing as well, you really want to make sure business leaders are fully on board with just, high level briefings on timing and what's happening when and what they can expect. That's the biggest thing people forget. And then they make assumptions. And if you're not communicating, they'll fill that gap with their own assumptions about what's happening when. And mostly then communications end up being a kind of emergency to fix things where things have been misunderstood. I also think related to timing, if you've got lots of information to communicate and you're trying not to overload people and trying to think about, when and how, have a place where they can then go back and find things that were sent. So if you're doing, communications, upload them all to an intranet site or a SharePoint, collate them in an FAQs, keep that kind of timeline of what's happening when, so people can go back and go, wait, they sent an email out last month about this and I didn't really read it, and so my team's asking me, where can I go and just find that really quickly so I can make sure I've got access to that information. And then you're not repeating yourself over and over, right? You're putting links to say, please go here and see this, please visit this FAQ, etc. And then I think with sequencing as well, you really want to try and overlap things as much as possible. Nothing ever happens in a completely linear way when we're looking to implement big change in a business. There's always certain activity that we could be doing in parallel. So timing is, really key, and sequencing within it, not just kind of having big chunks of activity, thinking about where things overlap and where those dependencies are. For all help with kind of building out what a change strategy should really look like, what a change plan should look like, how to do your impact assessment, all of that is available on the Change Proud platform, and it includes templates so you can go and kind of tailor things to what's going to be useful for you in your business, because not all one size fits all. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and have a look at the other things that I tend to talk about in the change, culture, business space. Like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.